Here I say. Right, it's my great privilege to introduce my dear friend Peter, who hopefully some of you know. He's been around actually Triratna for 30 years now. He came in touch with it in 1995, unusually at Padmaloka Retreat Centre, because he happened to live about 200 yards down the road. And so he did it the wrong way round in some respects. And he's been in touch ever since with groups in Bedford, etc., etc. And he came to Cambridge in 2010. So he's been here now at the Buddhist Centre for, 15 years or so. Became a Mitra in 2013. Asked for ordination in 2016, I think. Really well. Yeah, it's all memorised, and he joined my Going for Refuge group then. I knew him before, but I got to know him a lot better at that stage. He's a delightful man. I would really recommend that you get to know him if you don't already. He's very dedicated to the Dharma. He's got a lot of other commitments. He's got a wife and 16-year-old son, Christopher. He lives over in Gamlingay, so it's a bit of a schlep for him to get here. And he's been a very senior manager at the RSPB, so manager of a couple of reserves and stuff for 35 years, I think it is. The good news for all of us is that he's retiring in August, and he's dedicating himself to his ordination process as long as he can get away from his artistic endeavours and his love of nature and stuff. But he's planning to come here a lot more. He's one of the kindest, gentlest, most thoughtful men I know. He's really a delight to get to know. So if you don't know him already, I would thoroughly recommend getting to know him. And I'm really looking forward to your talk.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that's wonderful. Yes, can you hear me all right? I haven't got a very strong voice, so I will do my best. As Sarvajit said, I'm much more used to giving talks about birds with a big screen, talking about wildlife and habitats, which is my comfort zone. So bear with me a little bit. I'm afraid my voice is not that great. So my talk's called Bubble in a Stream. And I was very, very honoured to be invited to give this talk about Dharma that has a personal connection with me. And strictly speaking, anything that leads us towards enlightenment is Dharma. And there are lots of things I've come across that I've found very moving, profound, and which I try and keep in mind. So it hasn't been straightforward at all to choose what to talk about. I suppose I tend to think about suttas and sutras when we talk about the Dharma, so I've focused my talk on some of those. Some of the things that I thought about were, I find the Lotus Sutra particularly rich, especially the parable of the burning house, with its dire warning of suffering and impermanence, and the rich alternative offered by choosing the Dharma path and leaving that burning house that is the non-Buddhist path. And it's a horror film of a parable, really, to be honest. It has such vivid imagery that really makes you think about how unaware we can be. Like children engrossed in playing inconsequential games, unaware that life could be so much better and that life is short. And I'm sat at home with a 16-year-old son, so the playing of inconsequential games is very, very real to me all the time. You ignore the invitation to leave a burning house at your peril. It's such an opportunity to get outside of that kind of life. And then also there's the Lotus Sutra. In the Lotus Sutra is the parable of the plants, where a thunder cloud, the Tathagata or Buddha, is pouring down a spiritual rain on the whole world. And of course that probably is very timely at the moment, where everywhere is so dry and parched. All the plants are drying up. And personally, I've actually seen 3 fires outside this summer alone being tackled by our wonderful fire brigade. So the Buddha is pouring down a spiritual rain on the whole world. Plants of all kinds, which is us, take it up and grow, each of us in our own way, even though it's the same rain poured down equally on all of us. I just love that picture of the great big cloud. And in fact, I noticed, I think it may be a photo by Dharma Chanda at Sangharakshita's funeral, that there was a painting of that cloud raining down on the plants on the side of Banti's coffin. So I think it was a very special thing for him too. I do have doubts of my own ability to develop as a Buddhist. I expect that it's quite normal, really, and perhaps to compare oneself to others, I wonder, do I put in enough effort in devotional practice? Why doesn't my heart open more in puja? Why do I struggle with the metta bhavana and leave it, for several days before repeating it? And most of all, why can't I remember order members' names? I don't know what that's about. But this parable, the parable of the plants in the Lotus Sutra, helps me with all these doubts. It's clearly saying that the invitation to follow the Dharma is open to us all, and that you and I, like the rare and unusual plants that we are, will flourish in our own way and in our own time. Just as with plants and rain, we understand and respond to these teachings in subtly different ways. While there is a generally accepted interpretation of what each teaching is about, beautifully laid out usually by Sangharakshita, that teaching may be aimed at a particular spiritual issue in a particular historical context. But there is room for each of us to hear the message that we are uniquely able to appreciate at each time of our lives. I delight when new understandings unfold like the petals of a lotus, as I come back to the same Dharma teachings and find something new and develop a new appreciation. I think most of us may even have an innate appreciation of Dharma even before we've received this personal invitation to become Buddhists. When I was about 30, I would go walking in the beautiful Lake District hills with my border collie Jess, who's sadly no longer with us. She was very helpful at pulling me uphill, like a lot of dogs on leads. This was me post-Christianity and pre-Triratna, and I was at that time searching for meaning in life. On one of those walks, I came across a bubbling mountain stream beside a gnarled rowan tree in a beautiful setting, and I considered, having lost a religion previously and not found the right one, whether I should invent my own religion, my own personal religion. It took the view that people lived their lives like water flowing down that stream, intermingling and interacting with each other, becoming new flows, and eventually joining the great ocean. I wrote about it excitedly in the pub later that day, and that was as far as my new religion got. But my actual talk, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a Ronnie Corbett thing, my actual choice of a Dharma teaching is the very last verse of the Diamond Sutra, which I came across much later after I made contact with Triratna about 30 years ago. It's unlike the main part of the Diamond Sutra, which is can be very confusing. And it has been suggested that this pithy little verse could have just been tacked on at the end rather than being part of the original sutra. If so, it nonetheless covers the same ground as the rest of the Diamond Sutra, which challenges our assumptions about our view of reality, about how we see ourselves. It challenges us to take a different view. So this is the piece. This is how to contemplate our conditioned existence in this fleeting world, like a tiny drop of dew or a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lightning in a summer cloud or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom or a dream. So is all conditioned existence to be seen. I loved this text from the Diamond Sutra from the first moment that I read it. I think, like the other text I've mentioned, it has very strong visual imagery, and maybe that's perhaps the artistic side of me, but I love to see those images come out so strongly. You read it and you can almost see the lightning flickering in the dark sky overhead. You can almost hear the bubble pop. You can watch the dewdrop like a brilliant round jewel on a fresh green leaf evaporate in the hot sunshine. I was asked to say something after my niece tragically lost her first baby. Baby Esme was carried nearly full term. You can imagine how terrible that was for her parents. I think they might be described as humanists, so they don't follow any particular religion, and I think they wanted to hear something meaningful from a non-Christian perspective. And I thought about what might be helpful, and after speaking a few sentences at the little grave in the woodland, I concluded with this verse. I'm not entirely sure what effect it may have had, but it felt right. It even felt like it was something coming from beyond, which I think you probably do feel when you quote the Dharma. In a way, I think they had invited a little of the Dharma into their lives at that agonizing time. Everyone can take something from this verse. On the surface, it's a simple message, beautiful and poetic, about life's brevity, intangibility, its mystery. It reminds us that all things die, that you can't hold on to things, that everything, perhaps even grief, will someday pass, that a bubble pops, but the river flows on. The diamond... Oh, sorry, I'll just get a drink of water. Thank you. Oh, that's better. The Diamond Sutra was written in about 400 CE, a long time after the Buddha, so about 900 years later, we think. However, there are other very similar writings to this piece at the end of the Diamond Sutra, scattered about in earlier Buddhist scriptures. And I was amazed. I was on a course led by Taradasa and Shubhadasa to find something very similar in the Sutta Nikaya, which is among the earliest Buddhist texts of the Pali Canon. In the intriguingly titled discourse called The Lump of Foam. The Lump of Foam. It describes each of the skandhas in turn, the skandhas being the aggregates or heaps of clinging. It describes each of the skandhas as a series of images that a monk encounters. The skandhas are likened in turn to a lump of foam floating down a river, a bubble, a mirage, the trunk of a banana tree, and a magical illusion. And each time it shows how they can be seen to have no substance, that they are void, hollow, and insubstantial. Now, as many of you know, the skandhas are the sum total of everything that makes us up. You, me, everything. Form, feeling, perception, thought, consciousness. That's us. And the sutta is saying that one should view nothing as having a separate self, that everything is interconnected, that everything flows from other conditions. The bubble is feeling, or Vedana, in the sense of whether you like something or not. I think it's a good metaphor for that sense of attraction or aversion that bubbles up from who knows where and pops just as quickly. The lump of foam represents form, or rupa. Where I work, there is a garden with a large pool with water lilies, a bit like lotuses, and in the pool there is a fountain powered by an electric pump, and a few weeks ago the pump broke and had to be replaced. Maybe the pump wasn't set right, because for the first week after the gardener switched it on, the pool filled with masses of foamy bubbles, like someone had added bubble bath. The breeze blew this foam into strange browny white forms, like so many monstrous little snow creatures. But you know what it's like to try and grasp a lump of foam in your hands? It's like there's nothing there. And if you've ever enjoyed a bubble bath, after an hour or so of enjoying relaxing in the hot, soapy water, you suddenly realise the bubbles have all gone and the water's gone cold. So that's so much for form. In essence, nothing of these skandhas, the things that make us, is permanent, satisfactory, or separate. The way we experience life can be considered an illusion. It doesn't mean that we're not really here, that we shouldn't look after ourselves or each other, or that we should just give up. But it does mean that there is another way to see the world, to see ourselves, to see everything, and that may be just as valid and more helpful. I have found myself reflecting more and more on this, not just the impermanence, but the interbeing, the connectedness, the view that we are not separate and distinct. Of course, we don't always see this on a day-to-day basis. It's hard to break away from the common view, the view that we've probably all grown up with. But I find it a really good mindfulness exercise to try to do so. Whatever we think we believe, most of us behave as though we will live forever. That important thing you have to do gets put back and back, like going on that retreat that somebody's recommended to you. There's plenty of time, it'll come around again next year, just leave it till next year. That's me, definitely. Sometimes I spend time thinking about or working towards the next shiny thing that will make me happy. Will it really make me happy? Will it last? Perhaps you're looking out for number one because that's what people do. You think you're separate and more important than anyone else. And maybe we tell ourselves that what we do, what we choose to do, doesn't affect anyone else. So, what might be like if we really could see life more like an illusion, a trick, a flash of lightning, or a dream? Well, perhaps we would be less egocentric, be more inclined to do the right thing now, and put less emphasis on grasping at impermanent, empty things. We might start to discover that we are not what we thought we were, that we are interconnected at every level. We might even live our lives for the benefit of all beings and change ourselves radically. I used to think that the skandhas sounded a bit theoretical, a little dry, but now I keep being drawn to this different view, the interbeing of everything, and this surprising revelation that existence can be seen in an entirely different way. It keeps challenging me and changing me. When I'm mindful of this, I find it's harder to judge and blame myself and others, easier to try and connect and understand. When I consider this different view, I find I'm holding on to things a little less rigidly, grasping at things less, opening up a bit more, hopefully being a bit more patient with others and with myself. Buddha taught that as long as he did not directly know the 5 aggregates subject to clinging, he did not claim to have awakened to enlightenment. So, I'll just read that poem again, if I may, that last extract. This is how to contemplate our conditioned existence in this fleeting world, like a tiny drop of dew or a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom or a dream. So is all conditioned existence to be seen. So spake the Buddha. Thank you.